The night of August 26th, 1883. In the Sunda Strait, between the islands of Java and Sumatra, the world is coming apart. The sky is not dark, but alive, ripped open by forks of volcanic lightning that illuminate a scene from a nightmare. The sea itself seems to be breathing, exhaling a sour, metallic smell that catches in the back of your throat. And in the moments between the deep, chest-rattling detonations from the island of Krakatoa, there is a silence so profound it feels like the entire planet is holding its breath. In the low-lying port of Anyer, on the Javanese coast, a family huddles together. They listen not to the explosions, but to the small sounds of fear. The nervous trembling of window glass, the soft whimpers of livestock in their pens, the frantic, unexplained barking of dogs down the lane. The air is thick, not with the familiar humidity of the tropics, but with a fine, gritty dust that settles on every surface. It tastes like ash and smells of sulfur. From their roof, they hear a gentle, rhythmic tapping, like the first drops of a strange rain. It's not water. It's pumice pebbles, light as cork, falling from a sky gone mad. 70 miles away in Batavia, the colonial capital, a young Dutch telegraphist named Willem sits hunched over his key. The wire crackles with atmospheric static, a constant hiss punctuated by frantic, fragmented reports coming in from coastal stations. The messages speak of a rain of fire, of harbors choked with floating stone, of a sky at noon as dark as midnight. As he copies the words, he notices the barometer on the wall. It's been falling steadily, unnervingly, all day. It's as if the very pressure of the atmosphere is being squeezed out of existence. Out on the water, caught in the heart of it, is Captain Johan Lindemann. His ship, the Dutch steamship Gouverneur-Generaal Loudon, is anchored, but it is not still. It strains against its anchor chains, which creak and groan under the force of sudden, sudden squalls. The deck is coated in a gray slurry. The horizon, where the sun should have set hours ago, is a smear of hellish red, glowing with cinders ejected from the volcano. Every few minutes, a deep, resonant thump travels through the water and up through the hull, a monstrous heartbeat that rattles the crockery in the galley. This is not one mountain, but 3 volcanic cones, Perboawatan, Danan, and the Great Krakatoa, which together form the island of Krakatoa. For months, it has been restless, grumbling, and steaming. But now, it is escalating with terrifying violence. And this strait is no empty wilderness. It's a highway of the Dutch Empire, a crossroads for shipping. Its shores are lined with villages, home to tens of thousands of people who live by the sea, with no warning systems, no seismographs, nothing but rumor and the evidence of their own frightened senses. On the Sumatran coast, near the village of Ketimbang, a fisherman stands on the shore, watching the sea do something he has never seen before. The tide is not coming in or going out. It's pulsing. It surges forward, higher than any normal tide, then drains away with astonishing speed, exposing yards of slick, dark seafloor that should never see the light of day. He sees animals, deer and boar, fleeing from the coast, running inland as if chased by a ghost. The fisherman watches, mesmerized, as the water pulls back again, farther this time than ever before. It reveals a world of tangled weeds and stranded fish, the sand steaming in the cool night air. Ignoring a primal instinct to run, he takes a tentative step onto the exposed seabed. At that same moment, miles offshore, Captain Lindemann on his steamship feels a sudden, powerful pressure wave slam through the hull, a silent concussive blow that shoves the entire vessel sideways. And then, from the direction of Krakatoa, a new sound begins. It is not the percussive thump they have been hearing. It is a low, guttural roar, a sound that seems to come from the very bowels of the earth. And it is getting louder. It swells and rises and keeps on rising. The roar never stops. As Monday, August 27th, 1883 dawns, it's not a dawn of light, but of suffocating gloom. At 5:30 in the morning, the first of the day's great paroxysms rips through Krakatoa. The shockwave is not just heard, but felt. It's a physical blow. Hundreds of miles away, windows bow inward, then shatter. Birds drop from the sky, their delicate bodies unable to withstand the pressure change. For those closer, ears ring with a deafening hum, and the air is punched from their lungs. This isn't just an eruption. It's a fundamental unraveling of the earth. Deep beneath the waves, a battle of elements is reaching its climax. Seawater is flooding into the volcano's heart, meeting superheated magma. Imagine pouring water into a pan of boiling oil, but on a planetary scale. Each drop of water flash steams, expanding over 1,700 times its original volume in an instant. The mountain isn't just venting pressure anymore. It's being torn apart from the inside out by its own furious energy. The rock that held it all together is failing. On the coast of Java, in the town of Anyer, a mother clutches her child, staring at the horizon. Something is wrong. The sea, just moments ago, had pulled back, exposing the seabed in a silent, terrifying retreat. Now, it returns, not as waves, but as a single, glassy cliff of water. A dark wall moving with impossible speed, growing taller with every heartbeat as it races toward the shore. There is nowhere to run. Out at sea, aboard the ship, Loudon Captain Lindemann sees the same monstrous wave. He barks orders, turning the ship's bow to face the onslaught. He'd on the only chance they have. Bang the fires, he yells, his voice barely audible over the volcano's continuous thunder. Ash, thick and wet like black ink, is raining down, clogging the engine intakes, threatening to stall them at the worst possible moment. A crewman later wrote of darkness at daybreak, describing, "Oh, the sea struck like a wall." 75 miles away in Batavia, the chief telegraphist, his hands trembling, taps out a frantic warning. The telegraph line hisses with static electricity from the supercharged air. His message stutters, broken by the atmospheric chaos. Beside him, the needle on the barographin instrument, measuring air pressure, is swinging wildly, scribbling an impossible graph of the atmosphere's violent convulsions. He's recording the heartbeat of a catastrophe. The world descends into a sensory overload. Pumice stones, some as large as a man's head, begin to rain from the sky, thudding against decks and rooftops. They are so full of trapped gas that they will later form massive floating rafts, choking the sea for miles. The sky itself is a horrifying spectacle. It's not dark, but flickers with an eerie, blue-white, light volcanic lightning, born from the friction of countless tons of ash particles colliding high in the atmosphere. The air is thick with the taste of sulfur, a gritty, acidic film that coats your teeth. The sound is a constant, physical presence, like the universe itself is being ripped like canvas. What those terrified witnesses don't yet know is that this is all just the opening act. The eruption column is already punching through the atmosphere, soaring over 20 miles high into the stratosphere, where its dust will encircle the globe. Ships dozens of miles away are logging that the end of the world had surely come, but the worst is yet to come. The detonations are growing closer, more refractant, building toward a final, terrifying crescendo. 4 more blasts are on their way, each one exponentially more powerful than the last. Anyer, the famous lighthouse, a beacon of safety for decades, stands against the churning gray. But beyond it, another shadow is rising from the sea. It's a second wave, larger, faster, and darker than the first. It blots out what little light remains, a moving mountain of water. The lighthouse, the town, the very coastline itself, begins to disappear into the onrushing darkness. The thunderous echoes of the first explosions are still shaking the world as a second, even more violent blast rips through the Sunda Strait. Then a third, each one a hammer blow from the earth itself. The sky is no longer sky. It's a roiling, black ceiling pressing down on a world turned upside down. On the coast of Sumatra, in the village of Ketimbang, a sudden, searing wind sweeps through the palm trees. It's not a normal sea breeze. It's hot, dry, and carries the taste of a furnace. People squint across the water, and what they see defies all logic. A low, gray cloud, dense and heavy, is not rising into the air but skimming across the surface of the sea, racing towards them faster than any ship. They don't know the term pyroclastic surge. They only know that the air is turning to fire. They feel the scorching heat on their faces moments before the monstrous cloud engulfs the shore. A wave of incandescent ash, steam, and gas. Aboard the Gouverneur-Generaal Loudon *. Captain Lindemann screams orders against the unending roar. His men, hands raw and blistered, shoveled desperately. The falling ash is so hot it melts on contact with the wet decks, forming a gritty, steaming paste that sticks to everything. Clumps of pumice, light enough to float, clatter against the hull like a hailstorm of stone. The sea is choking. Close the seacocks, Lindemann bellows, or we'll drown in rock before the water gets us. The ship is an island of grim resolve in a churning sea of volcanic debris. Inland on Java, the flight for survival is a frantic scramble against time. The ground shudders relentlessly. Villagers surge up the hillsides, away from the coast, their lungs burning with every breath. They carry the elderly on their backs, their faces masks of terror and exertion. A cart, overloaded with a family and their meager possessions, lurches violently. A wheel splinters, collapses. Cries of despair are swallowed by the din. A woman, halfway up the slope, shrieks her child's name. She turns back, plunging into the chaos against the tide of fleeing people, every second stretching into an eternity. The scale of this catastrophe is unimaginable. The waves born from the volcano's collapse are not mere ripples. They are liquid mountains, some reaching over 100 feet high as they crash into the nearby coasts of Java and some entire islands, like Sabisi and Sabuku, which were once green and teeming with life, are being scoured clean, wiped from the map as if they never existed. The sheer force of the explosion has sent a pressure pulse, an invisible shockwave, expanding outwards through the atmosphere. At this very moment, barographs in cities thousands of miles away are registering its passing, their needles tracing a ghostly signature of the disaster. We don't need to see the horror up close to feel its chilling grip. The suffocating darkness, the searing heat, the sound that feels like the world is being torn apart. Amidst the chaos of the surging water, a single child's sandal bobs in the surf, a sodden prayer book, its pages fused together, washes ashore where a village once stood. These small, silent objects speak of a loss so immense it's hard to comprehend. The final count is not yet known, but the numbers are already staggering. Over 36,000 lives will be claimed, most swallowed by the colossal tsunamis that erase entire communities in a matter of minutes. In the port city of Batavia, miles away, the telegraph operator frantically taps out a final, desperate message. The connection to the coast is failing. His last words click across the wire. Sea rising, ... fast. ... quotes then. Silence. The line is dead. The outside world is cut off, left with only the jagged, frantic line being scratched by a barometer needle, a testament to the violent drop in atmospheric pressure. And then, something shifts. For a single, terrifying moment, the continuous, deafening roar ceases. The world, which has been shaking and screaming for hours, falls utterly silent. The wind stops. An eerie, unnatural vacuum descends upon the Sunda Strait. It's as if the mountain, having exhaled its fury, is now taking one final, colossal breath. Everything waits. The air is still, holding a terrible, unspoken promise. The air over the Sunda Strait grew strangely quiet. A hush fell, heavy and electric, thick with ash and anticipation. On the decks of the ship *Loudon*, lamps were lit against a sunless sky, their haliss struggling to pierce the suffocating gloom. It was mid-morning, yet the world was draped in an artificial night. Below, in the churning, deeper-choked water, the sea itself seemed to be holding its breath. Then, at precisely 10 a.m., the silence was annihilated. Another colossal explosion ripped from Krakatoa, a violent precursor that sent a fresh shockwave shuddering across the strait. This was not the end, but it was a horrifying promise of what was to come. Deep beneath the waves, the volcano was tearing itself apart. The morning's blasts had fractured the very foundation of the mountain. Now, The cold, immense pressure of the ocean was forcing billions of gallons of seawater into the volcano's core, directly into its seething magma chamber. It was the ultimate, catastrophic meeting of elements. Water flashed instantly into superheated steam, expanding with unimaginable force. It was a pressure cooker on a planetary scale, primed with pulverized rock, trapped gases, and the furious energy of the Earth's molten heart. The great caldera was about to be born in an instant of unimaginable violence. On the hillsides above the obliterated town of Anyer, survivors clung to the wet, trembling ground. The previous tsunamis had scoured the coast clean, leaving behind a wasteland of mud and ruin. Now, they watched in renewed terror as the sea performed its ghastly trick again. The water roared backward, pulling away from the shore at an impossible speed, exposing the skeletons of shipwrecks and a skeletal forest of splintered pilings on the raw, naked seabed. They knew what this meant. The sea was gathering itself for another, even greater, assault. Aboard the Loudon asterisk, chaos was a low, constant hum beneath the volcano's roar. Captain Lindemann stared into the darkness, his face a mask of coal dust and grim determination. Visibility was near zero. Every breath was a choking cough of ash. The air tasted of sulfur and iron. He made a decision that seemed like madness. Instead of running, they would tend the ship's bow to face the monster. He ordered his crew to lash the terrified passengers to the ship's rails, hoping that by meeting the coming wave head-on, the Loudon asterisk might, just might, punch through. It was their only chance. A desperate gamble against the apocalypse itself. Along the Sumatran coast, the sky was not raining water, but fire and earth. Hot, ash, pumice, stones the size of fists, and a thick, searing mud fell relentlessly. It was a biblical plague. People huddled wherever they could find shelter, the relentless assault drumming on roofs and turning the landscape into a steaming, gray nightmare. The continuous thunder that had tormented them for hours was changing, modulating into a single, deafening, grinding note, the sound of a mountain being crushed by its own fury. Miles inland, windows that had withstood the earlier blasts now spontaneously shattered. Animals, wild and domestic, lay flat against the earth, paralyzed by a primal fear. Then, for a single, horrifying moment, a new kind of silence fell. It was not the quiet of peace, but a void, a total, absolute stillness where the grinding roar ceased, leaving only the frantic drumming of human heartbeats. It was the deepest breath the world had ever taken before its most violent scream. Far across the globe, in cities from London to San Francisco, the delicate needles on barometers were about to twitch, registering a pressure wave that would circle the planet 4 times. The air itself was about to become a weapon. At 10:02 on August 27, 1883, the final moment arrived. A flash of light erupted from the sea, brighter and more absolute than the sun. It was not a color, but the absence of pure, incandescent energy. An invisible wall of air, a shockwave moving faster than sound, hit the shores first. It didn't bend trees. It vaporized them, stripping leaves, bark, and branches in a microsecond. It ripped the very breath from the lungs of anyone exposed to its power. And then, with a sound that would not be heard but felt, across 1/10 of the globe, the mountain gave way. Krakatoa detonated. At 10:41 on the morning of August 27, 1883, the world held its breath. Krakatoa did not rumble. It detonated. The final explosion was the loudest sound in recorded history, a physical force that hammered the chest, obliterated words, and sheared rock. It was a sound so immense it traveled thousands of kilometers. A deafening crack heard from the Andaman Islands to Western Australia. In an instant, the island's central cones vanished, collapsing into the sea and birthing a massive, submerged caldera. The mountain had erased itself. The immediate consequences were apocalyptic. An air pressure wave, a shock wave of immense power, radiated outward. 4 miles, it stripped trees bare, flayed the walls from buildings, and burst the eardrums of anyone unfortunate enough to be nearby. Then came the darkness. The sky turned black at noon, a complete and terrifying void that even lamps couldn't penetrate. Ash and pumice fell like scorching hail, while jagged forks of lightning illuminated the roiling, superheated clouds from within. From the heart of the collapse, the ocean itself rose in fury. A final, monstrous tsunami, 30 to 40 meters high, surged towards the coasts of Java and Sumatra. It annihilated the towns of Anyer and Merak, sweeping lighthouses and harbors from the map as if they were children's toys. The Dutch warship Biru was hurled nearly 2 miles inland, coming to rest in a forest. Yet, in this chaos, there were miracles. Aboard the passenger steamer Loudon Captain Lindemann made a desperate choice. Instead of running, he turned his ship's bow directly into the approaching wall of water, ordering the boilers to full power and his crew and passengers to lie prone. The Loudon was lifted, scraped by a torrent of pumice, and then dropped back into the churning sea, battered, but alive. There was no such miracle at Ketimbang on the Sumatran coast. A pyroclastic surge, a searing cloud of hot gas, and a shrest across the water and incinerated everything in its path. Those few who survived stumbled through an ashen landscape, their world remade into a silent, gray wasteland. The eruption's effects rippled across the entire globe. Barographs from London to New York traced the pressure wave as it circled the planet not once, but multiple times. Dust and aerosols veiled the stratosphere, painting sunsets a haunting, blood red for months on end. A faint ale, known as Bishop's Ring, appeared around the sun. For the next year, average global temperatures dipped, a subtle but measurable sign of the volcano's power. The human cost was staggering. Over 36,000 lives were lost, entire communities wiped from existence. The Sunda Strait, once a familiar shipping lane, had its charts redrawn overnight. For weeks, relief ships navigated through a grim seascape, clogged with floating rafts of pumice, tangled with the remains of forests and the bodies of victims. Years later, where a mountain once stood, something new began to stir. A new volcanic cone, Anak Krakatau, the child of Krakatoa, rose from the drowned caldera. It was a living, breathing reminder that the Earth's story did not end on that terrible day. At Anyer, where the old lighthouse was destroyed, a new one was built, a beacon of light serving as both a memorial and a warning. Disasters don't end when the noise fades. They remake coasts, climates, and lives, leaving behind stories of tragedy, survival, and resilience. If you want to hear more true stories that shook the world, subscribe and join us for our next journey into the past. Thank you for watching.